ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit.
Hello and welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and myself, James Marsh. And this is every best picture. On this week's show, we will be talking about 1932's Academy Award winner, Grand Hotel.
But before we set out, I just want to say thank you on behalf of James and I for the first 300 subscribers that have signed up to Deep Dive Movie Reviews. It's so great to have you along on the film journey with us. And if you haven't hit subscribe, do us a favor, hit that button now so you never, ever miss a video. And just as a reminder, Deep Dive's Movie Reviews does contain spoilers. So you have been warned. James, let's talk about the Grand Hotel.
Grand Hotel, Oscar winner 1932 for Best Picture, finds its place in history as the only film ever so far to win Best Picture without any other nominations in any other category whatsoever, which is quite a unique accomplishment in itself.
Considering this cast, that is an accomplishment because you would have thought the best actors and actresses would have been a given in this film.
Yeah, I think it was seen even way back then as a snub that the likes of Greta Garbo, Joan Barrymore, Lionel Barrymore, Joan Crawford. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Wallace Beery, who had just won Best Actor the previous year for his film The Champ. None of them got a look in whatsoever. Neither did the screenplay.
Neither did Denis Villeneuve. I mean, he was snubbed in 1932 as well.
That's it. Yeah, where was Denis Villeneuve? Was he even born? Who can say? But he probably should have been nominated.
He should have been on there, yeah.
Yes, he should. So yeah, Grand Hotel, was adapted from the stage play America, written by William Absalom Drake, and essentially is the story of the goings-on, the happenings at the Berlin Grand Hotel. I think it's set around the time that it's filmed, isn't it? I think it is set around sort of 31, 32, sort of
in between the wars. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's called the Weimar period, just before Hitler took over.
I believe, because it is in Berlin, right? That this is happening. The Grand Hotel is in Berlin. It's not in America.
No, absolutely not. No, and you saw that a lot. I mean, we've done 4, 5 Best Picture winners so far, and only 2 of them have been set in America so far, and the others have all, at least in part, been set in Germany. You know, two of them were war movies, and this one is, during that sort of halcyon period, really, wasn't it? You know, this is the time of, this is just before Cabaret, I was going to say, because Cabaret was during the Nazi rise to power. But it was a very bountiful period in in Germany's history, you know, with a lot of artistic flourish and a lot of filmmakers coming out of the silent era, who would then mostly all flee to Hollywood as soon as Hitler came to power. But yeah, it was a very sort of profitable halcyon period, purple patch. You know, what do you want to call it? It was good times. It was good times in Berlin at this stage. And this is really just a kind of slice of life story and ensemble about the goings on of an intrigue of all the different guests at the hotel. And we've seen this kind of story told numerous times since. It's got I found it had an almost kind of Agatha Christie mystery kind of vibe to it, a sort of Murder on the Orient Express kind of thing going on.
Death on the Nile, yes, these strangers whose lives they're thrust together into a single location, and then the playing out of the different agendas and motivations. Yeah, absolutely, I got the same vibe.
Yeah, and it's bookended by this sort of amusing comment that the Doctor character played by Louis Stone, who's got this sort of massive facial scar from the First World War on his face. Dr. Ottenschlag is his name. And there are some amusing names in this movie. There is this kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of playfulness to all of the mystery and the intrigue and the storytelling here, where he basically sort of says, the Grand Hotel, people come, people go, nothing ever happens. And then ironically ends the film by saying the exact same thing after we have been witness to all manner of goings-ons, deceptions, betrayals, murders even. So where do you want to start with this one, Steve?
I just want to say at the beginning, what a delightful film. For me, this was the first film that we have viewed in this series where I was really familiar with the cast by and large. Most of our previous films, I had to kind of learn who the cast was. I mean, yes, there was Gary Cooper in Wings doing a cameo, but other than that, I was largely unfamiliar with the cast from the previous films. This has got Lionel Barrymore. It's got John Barrymore. My wife, Tammy, was asking, how do you know them? I said, do you know Drew Barrymore? She goes, yeah. Drew Barrymore is related to these guys? I said, it's the Barrymore family acting dynasty. So you got Joan Crawford, you got Greta Garbo. This was just it was a delightful film. And what I loved, among other things I'm sure we'll discuss, is the production values. There was such a sense of busyness. Like every scene just had the busyness of a hotel in operation and the comings and goings of these people's lives and the interactions of bellboys and porters and front office staff intermixing with the doctor, as you aforementioned, who kind of bookends with that line. But also throughout the film, he kind of enters and will be an observer of these comings and goings, almost like this godlike character. There's some scenes where there's this very energetic interaction or dialogue between two of our stars, and then the doctor will walk out past them like he's been observing this all. So I just found that that Grand Hotel was, and I think coming from a play, this is why we can see it. It is a very tight film. The dialogue is tight. The scenes are tight. It's very complex and interwoven, but it works tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, this was the first time I had seen it, and I knew that it was based on a play, and I knew that it was a single location. Everything that goes down happens within the walls of the Grand Hotel. And so I came in and I was like, okay, I know it's got an all-star cast, but I was apprehensive that it might feel a little kind of stagey and a little, in that regard, but it doesn't at all. I mean, the opening scene is that aerial shot over the telephone operators, and immediately you're like, oh, okay, they're going to try and do something visually to kind of break it out of its theatrical trappings, if you like, and that continues at a pace. I mean, yeah, that whole opening sequence, after you get this barrage of phone conversations, which I think is a great way of introducing the characters and their plots, essentially. You get this very busy, very kinetic, long sequence at the concierge desk, in the lobby of the hotel. And it's so, like you say, it's so busy. There's so much going on in the background throughout. And you're like, you couldn't do this on stage. It would just be too distracting and too noisy if you had just all of these characters going back and forth in the background. But it really, for me, it's sort of up to the stakes. It was the filmmakers sort of saying, oh, yeah, we're going to really kind of go for it here. Yeah. And there are a number of times during the film, like the forced perspective when they're up on the balconies looking down the sort of the central well into the so you get this idea of the depth and the height of the hotel, even though obviously it's all done with like matte paintings and forced perspectives and all the rest of it. And then the sequence where the Baron, played by John Barrymore, sneaks into the neighboring room. And so he's literally, you get this aerial shot where he's literally on the wall like this. You're like, okay, this is fun. He's got a really kind of playful sense of humor about it, which I really kind of appreciated.
Yeah, I loved watching Lionel Barrymore. At first, I found his portrayal of, I think it's Klingerman, right? Yeah, a little bit annoying.
Oh, Kringeline.
Sorry, Kringeline. I found it a little bit annoying at first because he just seemed all over the top and bubbly about everything. But over time, it really grew on me. I started to really like this character and the way that he envisioned how this person would actually play out. Another thing I want to comment on is I worked at a hotel as a concierge, a Westin hotel, while I was in grad school for 4 years. I was concierge at a Western, not Best Western, a Westin hotel. Very nice, maybe not as opulent as the Grand, but a very high-end hotel with conference centers and wedding facilities and all this. And I can attest to the fact that you throw your lives, you throw yourself into people's lives for a week. You're helping a family for a whole week, and you're getting to know them in their wedding or whatever big function they're having, and you're seeing the dramas and the fights and we've had suicides in the rooms. We've had death, we've had affairs, we've had angry lovers in the lobby. And the little talkings that the Bell staff will do it was very similar to what you'd have in this movie. Like even at the end, when John Barrymore, who plays the Baron, is murdered, the one bellman goes, "Oh, such a shame! I can't believe it. He was such a nice guy." And then he kind of goes on with his work. You know, and I'm thinking that's the way it is. That's how, because you can't stop for a minute, because there's another group of people, as this movie shows. There's always a new story coming into this hotel and another story ending. And I thought this movie beautifully encapsulated that kind of interaction that goes on in a place like a hotel.
Oh yeah, it's very literally that kind of revolving door sort of motif, you know, which is as far away from the hotel as we get. It's just, you know, the street outside as cars are pulling up and people are coming and people are going and all the rest of it. And I think it's exactly the type of story that lends itself to one of these great sort of star-studded ensembles, you know, where whether you are a large part of the narrative or whether your character is a small part of the narrative, you are all important. You've all got your own stories going on. And so it makes sense that you've got all of these big names. And I imagine this was one of the first of these big starry kind of studio ensemble casts that would, you know, that continue to this day, you know, where you just pack as many big names in as you can, and it really will pull the punters in. And so you've got, I mean, it is so deep. I mean, you've got the two Barrymore brothers, you know, Lionel and John, playing, you know, completely different and opposing characters. And I like the fact that early on, they're kind of almost rivals for the affections of Joan Crawford's character. And I thought that was really fun, the way that they kind of play off each other like that. I totally agree that when you first meet Kringeline, when he's complaining about how he's waited for such a long time and he's being treated like a sort of second-class citizen, he's like, "I've got money, I can pay, but you've just been ignoring me, and then you gave me this crappy room, you know, and I want the best room, and I want," and you're kind of like, "Oh, who is this whiner?" And then, you know, you're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of, you know, and the hotel are like, "Okay, come with us, and we'll give you the it's like the presidential suite or something ridiculous that he gets given, and all he wants to do is throw his money around." But you realize that he comes from a good place.
Yes, yeah,
and
it made me think of the Andy Lau movie where he plays the crook on the train in mainland China. And there's all these other criminals, and you have this very naive person who is just trusting of everybody, and he's got this money from a year's worth of labor, and it's all in cash. And he doesn't realize that there's all of these vultures that have their eyes on him on this train. And I don't know, it made me think of Lionel Barrymore's character being similar to that, where he's in a hotel, he's flaunting all this money, he's dropping it. Even John Barrymore for me was like the Andy Lau character, like when he steals the pocketbook and all he wants to do is take this money, like it would just make his life. But there's this moral compass in the Baron as well, and he can't do it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say also is, in this film is some of the first time we are seeing certain tropes and themes that we would go on to see in a plethora of other movies in the decades to follow.
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, I love the Baron as a character. You know, he's so kind of complicated. You know, he comes in, he's swanning around, he's confident and all the rest of it. And then you realize, of course, he's completely broke. You know, he's in the pocket of this gang of gangsters, because, you know, he has these early conversations with his chauffeur, and you're like, these are weird interactions. You know, the power dynamic is completely off here, you know, to the point where at first I was almost suspecting, I was like, have they like swapped roles? Is the guy masquerading as the Baron really the chauffeur and vice versa? And I wonder if that was what was going on. But no, you realize that actually the chauffeur guy is part of this kind of criminal gang that he's indebted to, and so he's got to, you know, steal these pearls and all the rest of it. And it's great, you know, he's in it for himself, and he's there to rob and steal and cheat and make money, but he can't help himself. He is just at his heart a good guy. Yeah. And so at every opportunity, he just has to give them that. He gives the pearls back. He gives the wallet back. Yeah. You know, he can't help but fall for the nice girl rather than for the ridiculous ballerina. But then, and then he ends up the victim, which is kind of tragic.
Well, speaking of the ballerina, I loved Lionel and John Barrymore's characters. I love Joan Crawford's characters. For me, the weak link, and I know that this is going to be to the chagrin of a lot of our listeners, was Greta Garbo. You know, other than we have to know probably of all the great movie lines that people have uttered throughout the years, this was probably the first time that we have a classic movie line uttered when she gives the now famous "I want to be alone."
Right.
I want to be alone.
It was funny because I didn't know that quote was in this movie. And so
I didn't either until
she said it, and I was like, "Oh yes, that's a famous one. That is."
Yeah. I just found her character. It's not that her acting was off or anything. I'm trying to pinch on that. It was more I just found the character a little dull and boring, and I didn't understand why Joan Barrymore was attracted to her over the Joan Crawford character. I would have taken Joan Crawford's character every day of the week and twice on Sunday over Greta Garbo.
I think I'm on the same page as you completely here. I mean, obviously Greta Garbo is brilliant, and we know what she's capable of, or what she would go on to be capable of. But yeah, I agree that her character here, it's a bit kind of one note. I think that the reason why the line is so resonated so much with audiences is that she already had this reputation for privacy in her personal life, and so I think that it really echoed her own sentiments with regard to her status and her relationship with the media. I think that's true. And so that's why when she said it, it's almost like a wink to camera. It's like, this is me, this is how I really feel, this is me talking. But yeah, the character in and of herself isn't particularly interesting and doesn't really have much of a journey during the film. She's just kind of sort of moping around her hotel room.
That's it. I think it's why, in general, I don't like people that are just mopers to begin
right.
with. So I don't want to watch them on the screen either. I much prefer the Joan Crawford character, where everything's an opportunity. The glass is always half full. I'm a little disappointed the Baron didn't keep his promise, but you know what? There's other guys out there, and right. There's just this get up and go. Which I really
oh yeah, she's watching. Such a firecracker in this. She's got all the sass and the smart comments, and that first interaction between the two of them, where she's waiting to go into Wallace Beery's hotel room to work, and they're so close together. Her and the Baron are like, it's their first meeting, and they're right up in each other's faces, flirting outrageously with one another, and they get and sort of saying like, "Oh, you're nice, aren't you? Yes, I like you." And it's such a great scene. It just crackles in a way that nothing with Greta Garbo in this particular movie does. But it was really refreshing, because I'm so used to seeing sort of older, crankier Joan Crawford, right. when she was a bit of a battle axe and a bit of a nightmare.
That she'd already had the reputation in real life of being a pretty horrific person.
Yeah, so it's great to see her so sort of young and vivacious and hungry here. She was great. She was arguably, well, I mean, I don't want to say she was the best thing in the movie, because I think almost, with the exception of Greta Garbo, everyone in this movie is really pretty something.
Agreed. And now that you mentioned that initial interaction between Joan Barrymore and Joan Crawford, I forgot what the actual dialogue was, but I remember thinking, wow, that's good dialogue for 1932. That was very well written. You can see somebody knew their stuff and there's a lot of times where plays, I find that often plays have really good snappy dialogue, because it has to keep an audience's attention without all the bells and whistles that a film does. So when it transfers from the stage to the screen and it keeps that dialogue, I by and large, I tend to like film adaptations of stage plays. Unlike, as I've mentioned in the past, musicals, right. which I don't think often measure up. But stage plays do, and you can really see that the dialogue in this is well written and it's snappy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, with a stage play, it's all in the dialogue and in the performance, and that really glows here. Some other characters to highlight. I think you got to look at Wallace Beery, who's kind of the bad guy, if there's a bad guy in this movie. He's the domineering general director. Right. Of the company that Kringeline works for, and that Miss Flemchen, Joan Crawford's character, is coming to work for, and she kind of is the one who gets kind of cornered by him. And it's amusing the way that other characters try and sort of stand up to him, because he's this hulk of a man who had, as we said, just won Best Actor the previous year for playing the champ, for playing this sort of washed up boxer who has like one last go around. So he has this reputation on screen and off screen for being just this massive bear of a man.
Mhm.
And then I think, is it Kringeline at one point, or is it the Baron? I can't remember which Barrymore it is, but really almost goes kind of tete-a-tete with him at one point.
I think they both do at one point or the other. They both really rail into him. And this is where I got what's interesting was the writer and the perspective they're coming from. You know, this is, I don't know when the play came out. I can't remember, but obviously we were right around the time of the Great Depression. And the capitalist, this big, you know, captain of industry, he's the real villain in this, not the thieves. The thieves actually have, the jewel thieves and all these other characters, they actually have hearts of gold. They're the interesting characters that make the world go round. The real, like this movie's theme is the real bad guy in all this is this capitalist captain of industry that squashes. I think at one point Lionel Barrymore is basically saying, you know, you ignore me, you think you know, I get sick, you don't take care, you know, I'm nothing but a cog in a machine to you, I'm no longer a human being. And you can see that there's this socioeconomic attack that the writer is using to, you know, basically take a pot shot at the economic systems of the day.
Oh, sure. I mean, because we're right in the middle of the Great Depression and all of that, aren't we? Yeah, the play was actually just from like a year or so before, 1930 play, and that was also based on a novel, Menschen in Hotel, which I think just means people in a hotel.
Right.
A German novel from 1929. So it was all fairly recent. So it was very much
Great Depression inspired. Yeah.
Of and about this period, for sure.
Yeah. I got a question for you, James, is, you know, we're running into the last of our films that are pre-code. And do you think there's elements in this film that we wouldn't have seen in 5 or 10 years later? I rather suspected there might have been, but I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are sort of moments of sort of not quite nudity, but I remember at one point Joan Crawford's got, you know, her dressing gown is like open, very, 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 very open in a way that I think in a couple of years' time she would have been made to button up slightly. The simple fact of people going in and out of each other's bedrooms as much as they do, you know, you remember during the later 30s and the 40s, you couldn't show people in bed together, at all, you know. They really kind of reined all of that in, whereas here they're very open and almost very
European.
yeah but very sort of welcoming, not welcoming so much, but they allow it quite happily to you know, people to have sort of these casual affairs. And you know, the Baron spends the night in Greta Garbo's room and no one really thinks twice of it, you know. It's this casual fling and then he moves on, you know, and that's the end of that. Beyond that, however, was there anything else in there? I was thinking the promiscuity.
There was that moment with Wallace Berry's Praising where he's staring at Joan Crawford's legs and the camera just really zeroes in on Joan Crawford's legs. And this is 1932, a dude really checking out a chick and it being highlighted in the film. So I thought, I'm not so sure that would go. The other thought I had was this film didn't have the classic ending that you would have assumed, particularly from a golden age film. With John Barrymore being murdered, this is Deep Dive Movie Reviews, we do give spoilers here. He is viciously murdered by Praising.
By the villain.
He's pummeled. Basically, capitalism pummels the man to death. And it just got me thinking that would we have seen that kind of film or that kind of film win a Best Picture in 5 or 10 years? It just didn't have the ending that I kind of envisioned from those styles of movies back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, the ending is kind of interesting. Sort of nobody gets the girl, as it were. I mean, Wallace Berry's character is arrested and you know, apprehended for murder. Greta Garbo heads off on her own. Joan Crawford leaves with Lionel Barrymore, but you know, it's unclear what the nature of their relationship is going to be. She's very clear that she wants his money.
But I don't think it's even in a very malicious way. I think she genuinely likes him too. I see this as being what I heard recently as a new thing, personal platonic relationships. That people are foregoing marriage and they are getting into personal platonic relationships. And I thought that's interesting because I just heard that term for the first time this week. And now I watched Grand Hotel, and a movie nearly 100 years ago, I think is almost portraying what a personal platonic relationship would be like, because I see these two hanging out together, being one another's companions, doing everything together, her taking care of him because he needs to be taken care of. Even at the end, he picks up the wrong person's luggage. This guy is going to lose his money in about 5 days if she's not with him. But I don't see them consummating their relationship in any biblical fashion.
No, it reminds me almost of the end of Broadway Melody, where she hits the road with the guy with the stutter, and the same thing in Cimarron, where you've got the guy with the stutter there. Lionel Barrymore doesn't have a stutter, but he might as well have, if that's sort of Hollywood shorthand for, this is not a sexual threat in any way. He's a surrogate father figure. He will bankroll her. He'll be her sugar daddy if you like. But and she's game for it, and she will. Yeah. And I think perhaps another pre-code element is her willingness to sort of go along for the ride and to sort of to take him for not to take him for a ride, but to see the personal selfish benefits of this arrangement and go for it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is she doesn't see him as a mark to be conned, but she sees this as an opportunity for both her and him, that this is a mutual beneficial relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just her character in general, I mean, right from the very beginning, when she first walks into Praceling's hotel room, without knocking. I mean, he's expecting her, but he's also expecting her to knock. Walks in and he's there in the bathroom doing his exercises in just a towel, and she just stands there watching it. I'm not sure what she makes of this physical specimen, but she just goes ahead and watches until he notices, and he's like, get out, I'm not decent. I will call for you. So she's very much sort of this go-getting, forward-thinking woman that I think was probably about to become problematic. So in addition to Grand Hotel winning Best Picture and nothing else, and not being nominated for anything else, we should also note that Irving Thalberg was the producer, so he won the Oscar, and he has already won Best Picture before. He was the producer of the Broadway Melody, just 3 years earlier. Yeah. And and in the interim, I mean, he's produced a bunch of other films that were nominated for Oscars, if not Best Picture, like The Champ, for which Wallace Beery won the previous year, The Divorcee, and on and on and on. As you said, that is why there is an Oscar now named after him.
Indeed. James, I'd have to say that this film fulfills those requirements that we kind of set out at the beginning of this series. Does the film stand the test of time? Does it deserve its place in history? I think Grand Hotel, being one of the first ensemble casts with such a strong cast, and for all the reasons we aforementioned, just the production values, the way they were able to recreate in every scene, just the interactions of what goes on in a hotel as these vignettes of people's lives are being played out. What's interesting, when I originally saw this earlier this week for the first time, and I logged my letterbox, I logged it at 3 stars. But we're not giving stars on this, are we? We're just saying whether it's a place in history. I was going to say was...
Well, I'm curious anyway.
We're doing this free for all. That as happens often when we kind of process it together, and I'm forced to kind of walk through some of the aspects, maybe some things that you say that I hadn't considered, I would give this at least another half star. It's a delightful film, enjoyable. It earns its place in history, and it does stand the test of time. Surprisingly, 100 years out, it is fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this was my first time watching it, and this really feels like kind of golden era Hollywood. This is what made it so special, that it can take a play and transform it into a movie more than just filming the play. There's a real sort of energy, there's a real kinetic vibe to all of it. It accomplishes so many things. It is a murder mystery. It is a capitalist satire. It is a romance. It is all of these things, and manages to interweave them so sort of deftly and elegantly. and you get a real sort of sense of entertainment as well. It's fun first and foremost, and yeah, the cast is to die for, and I think almost everybody does great. And ironically, the one that we felt was slightly subpar, has the most famous line from the film in it, and she's not bad. It's just I think it's the character that just is slightly underdeveloped, or just has little to do. She's more of a catalyst than an actual sort of protagonist, should we say? But yeah, I was really sort of pleasantly surprised. I mean, I knew it was good, but I wasn't exactly sure why or what it was about, and I was thoroughly entertained from start to finish. So yeah, for me, it absolutely stands the test of time.
Well, there you have it. Let us know how you felt about Grand Hotel. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And remember, James and I are on social media. If you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram, those connections and links are in the box below as well. James?
That's right. Also, what did you think of Greta Garbo's performance? I mean, are we crazy here? Are we in the wrong? She's a great actress. She's done other work, better work. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? In the meantime, please do check out some of our other videos. We've got reviews for new movies as well as old movies. This is part of our Every Best Picture series, where we are going through every winner of the Best Picture Academy Award from the first to the most recent. It's going to take us a little while, but we're gaining some momentum. So I hope you'll join us for that.
It's been fun. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.